If you know me, I stand here at the pulpit with a sport coat on. Today, we're going to do something different, right? Get ready. You also know that I stay right here at the pulpit. It's time to do something different. Do I have the mic here? Now, you also know that I always have my notes. Well, I'm not crazy, people. I'm about to utter the two most terrifying words to an introvert: congregational participation. That's right, I'm coming down. I have life wisdom here that at some point we've all probably heard, correct? And so we're going to work into audience participation. I'm going to say the first half of the wisdom or the platitude, and you're going to blurt out and finish it, all right? So here we go. A penny saved. Ooh, you guys are good at this. It takes a village. A bird in the hand is. You got this down. Don't place all your eggs. You can lead a horse to water. Idle hands. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing. Ooh, that one had a few different ones. I need to learn the different ones. It's kind of like going to a different church and they start saying trespasses in the middle of the Lord's Prayer, and you're like, The early bird. All right, now here's the challenging part. Does someone have another piece of wisdom that you grew up with or you heard that you'd be willing to share with us? Raise your hand and I'm going to come around to you. All right. Making the camera people work.
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Ooh, that's a good one. What else? Who else has one for me? I'll take two or three. All right, we're going back here.
Don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today. My mom always.
Motherly wisdom, so wise. Anybody else? Give me one more. One more platitude that you know heard. All right, Linda's going to go over here. Making me walk this morning. Whew. This is why I don't leave the pulpit.
Don't cry over spilt milk.
Yeah, no use crying over spilled milk. That is excellent. These are all great platitudes, right? These are all worldly wisdoms that at some point and some time you have followed. Wait, you want to know how wild this is going to get? Yeah, that's right. There's truth in all these, correct? There's truth in every single one of these, and yet, they don't always work, do they? They don't always work. So let's break a few of these down. The bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Yet, there is wisdom in taking risks. There is wisdom in going beyond to give up what you have in order to get something extraordinary. What about counting your chickens? What if it pays to be proactive rather than reactive? So maybe sometimes you do have to count your chicks before they hatch because you want to prepare for when those chicks arrive. I think Micah's at this stage, right? The idle hands are the devil's playground. It's a very industrious saying, right? Keep busy, keep out of trouble. Recent psychology has shown that because we entertain our kids so frequently and do not let them be bored, that there's a loss of creativity. And it turns out being bored is the impetus to become creative. So why am I saying this? To ruin all of your worldly wisdom? No. This is the book of Ecclesiastes. It sits down and says, you have heard it this way, but there's also true in this way. It's a wisdom that leaves ambiguity and talks beyond regulations and rules and lists. Rather than telling everyone always to be happy, it leaves space for mourning. Rather than telling people to build, it allows time to tear down. Rather than telling people always to gather stones, sometimes you have to scatter those stones. Real wisdom comes not in finding a roadmap, but instead leading a life that allows for ambiguity. I strongly dislike ambiguity. If you come to my house, if you know anything about the Nammingas, you know that we are a structured people. The kids wake up at 6:40 every morning. Breakfast is at 7:05 on the table. We walk out the door to school at 7:45, depending on which little boy has decided not to follow these rules. I love Lego because it comes with a nice, clear instruction booklet. And my product is at the end. I like IKEA furniture because it is a very clear guideline. When I was a chaplain at Jamestown College, one of my students came to me and said, Pastor Darin, or Chaplain Darin, why can't the Bible just be clear about how I'm always supposed to act and what I'm always supposed to do? Why does it have so much ambiguity? And the more that I learn, the more confused I get. You see this in college students all the time, right? As first years, man, they are confident. They are self-assured. They have the world figured out. And the poor seniors have no idea what's going on. Let's take parenting, for instance. To prepare for parenting, I read books. I listened to podcasts. I listened to the advice of my elders and my mom and my dad and my in-laws. And it was all wonderful advice. And then that child came into the world. And I had no idea how to parent. And just when I had it figured out, I had a second child. And I knew how to deal with that second child until I didn't. And then I had a third, and I felt fairly confident if we figured out the first two, the third one would fall in line. And he just doesn't. So, one of the fascinating things about kids is we don't have hard and fast rules because we make up rules on the fly. You never know what the next thing you're going to do. No, you cannot jump off the back of the couch to body slam your brother with a giant pillow. That rule was brought to you by an emergency room visit. I guess it was just a diagnostic to see if we had broken a bone. Oftentimes as humans, we wonder, how do we get all these rule books and regulations? Because humans have an infinite number of ways to live and express creativity. There are rhythms to life. The world has rhythms. Life has rhythms. And some of these rhythms are completely diametrically opposed to one another. They seem like the antithesis of what you should be doing. Don't take risks, but do take risks. Get up early, but sleep in late and get rest. Be industrious. Answer every single email. Don't answer every email. That's not good for who you are. And both of those things can be true at the exact same time. There's a reason why ancient traditions have all used symbols of balance as core ideologies like the yin and the yang, dark and light, because our world is seasonal. Life is seasonal. Our experience is seasonal. In our gospel reading, Jesus confronts religious leaders that have very clear expectations. You see, the religious leaders, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they went out of their way to figure out, why did we get removed from our Holy Land? And what they figured out is we didn't follow the rules. And so they came up with a very elaborate set of rules that said, if we do A through Z, God will bless us. And then Jesus comes along and says things like, you've heard it said, that if a tree is not producing after 3 years, cut it down. But Jesus says, wait. Let's try one more year. In a desert landscape, you do not tolerate trees that do not produce fruit. That is resources that could be going to something that is fruitful. But Jesus says, wait, because maybe this time it will change things. Right after this parable, there is a confrontation of healing on the Sabbath. Now, in Jesus' day and age, there were very specific rules and regulations about what you could do on the Sabbath. And Jesus sees this woman who is in pain and in suffering, and he looks around, and the Pharisees are looking at Jesus. Is he going to heal, which is against regulation? And Jesus heals anyway, because he subverts the rules or the traditions or the wisdom that the leaders has come up with. In our society, there's a lot of pressure to do the right thing, have the right answer, take the right path or the right journey. I was talking to a high school junior, and she has some college visits coming up. And she had anxiety because she didn't know what she wanted to do with the rest of her life. 17 years old, and she didn't know what she wanted to do with the rest of her life. When I sit with many college students, that is one of their biggest fears, that they're going to get it wrong, right? That they're going to get it wrong, as if there's some one predetermined path for these students, and they only get one shot at it. Jesus in Ecclesiastes shows us a different perspective. It shows a different way of seeing the world. It shows us that being productive can be holy, but not being productive can also be holy and good and wholesome. It shows us that our ultimate goal is not to be happy. Psychology says that if you try to create happiness for your children as the ultimate goal, they will become unhappy. Ecclesiastes says, there's a time for dancing and joy and celebration, but there's a time for sorrow. There's a time to sit with your friends and just be sad. And that's also okay. Ecclesiastes and Jesus gives us permission to accept the role we are playing in life right now. And maybe the place you are in, maybe the place I am in, maybe it's okay, right? Maybe it's okay that we are in that place, that we don't have to look forward to when this happens or when that happens, because right now may be the place that it's okay to be in. So maybe the job you are in can still be holy and important, even if it doesn't feel like it's your calling or your career or the right decision. Maybe when you feel fatigued, you don't need external stimulants. And this is coming from a person who consumed a significant amount of external stimulants this morning. Maybe what you need is actual rest and to stop being productive. Rather than punishing yourself for taking that break, maybe you need to celebrate that break as a healthy, natural, God-given part of life. Ecclesiastes tells us it's okay to have that cup of coffee with help with motivation, and it's okay not to have that cup of coffee because maybe you don't need to have a motivation. It's okay to answer that email, and you know what? It's okay not to answer that email. It's okay to say yes to someone and something else. It's perfectly okay to add one more thing. But you know what? It's also okay to say no. And I have had to learn that no is a complete sentence, right? Can you do that? No. That's it. I don't need to explain anything else. Just no. I cannot do that. It's okay to feel happy, and it's okay to feel sad. There is a time to embrace and hold on, and there's a time to let go. Jamie and I have two very good friends who we've been friends with for a very long time who are married and have 3 beautiful young daughters. And yet after deep depression and other issues undermined their marriage, they fought so hard to keep that marriage together. They went to therapy, they worked on it, and for years and years they were trying to make it work. And finally, they said, we're going to stop. We're just going to stop. And that was a good thing. It was good for them. It was good for their children. It was good for their mental health. It was good for everyone around them. For years, our culture amongst Christianity has been, you cannot separate those things because it's not okay. And Ecclesiastes says, sometimes it's okay to let go because that would be better. Dr. Travis West, Hebrew scholar and former seminarian of a classmate of mine, has spent his life focusing his research and study around the teachings around the idea of Sabbath. His teachings and calling says to a 24/7 world that is always on that resting is holy, that resting is productive, that resting is part of who God calls us to be. It is ingrained in our lives, it is ingrained in our world, that it is ingrained in what the world is created to be. As you leave your house, as you leave worship, the world is brown and dark and gray and gloomy. But you see it, right? You see it. There's little sprouts all over the place. The world has been at rest, and it's about to burst forth with color and new life and new growth. And that only happens when you have that period of rest. Farming is unsustainable if you continue to try to make the ground produce. It needs a rhythm. It needs to be a season where it's not productive. Ecclesiastes and Jesus reminds us that even our best worldly wisdom is limited. Even the best advice cannot be applied to everything. That you, as a part of God's creation, have seasons. And that's okay. You don't have to be productive to the day that you die. You don't have to have that career every single moment. That there are times to be productive and there are times to not be productive. Because there's a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. There is a time to flip tables and there's a time for peacemaking. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.